I don't think so. They want to be
Two
not
around
at
it.
all, right?
Because it's
Correct.
not where we're
That's
heading.
my understanding.
And the kids are always listening in announcements.
Sorry.
Going into the
Walking.
hallways or in this.
I'll find out.
What you said today, it was on the top.
We're good. Okay,
The same
Bill and
way.
Diane, we're gonna get started for
Oh,
finance, just so
sorry.
you know.
No problem.
So. All right, we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting of the finance committee to order. It is 5:33. Galen, our chair, is unavailable, so I'll be chairing the meeting tonight in his behalf. And Stacy, I'm gonna just pass it right over to you, if that's okay, to give us an update on the fiscal year budget.
Sure, I do have a handout. I gave it to Dr. Cook.
Okay,
And I can walk you through. This is a similar format that we've done in the past. The top portion are available funds that we know as of today. The buildings, we asked them for a deadline of last Friday, so things are still trickling in. And we'll continue to monitor their potential available balances throughout the end of the year, but you'll have a much better update next month. So for now, we're seeing the bulk of the available funds are in the HR budget as normal, and this was from open positions, unfilled positions, staff turnover, as well as not replacing a few staffing areas. And then the FICA Medi, of course, that goes along with the open positions. And then the buildings, this is a complete project estimate. I don't know where we're gonna end up. But at this point, we're saying around 80,000 for that. There are 3 items that we did wanna kind of just bring to your attention for tonight. 2 of them we're hoping we could try to act upon. The legal account, the $30,000. We're asking for you guys to approve a line transfer that will move forward to the Board of Ed at their next meeting for that. We're running over right now. I think we have a balance of about $2,000 and we still have a few months left. And then the Brown School improvements, the main office, which I'm sure you all just heard about from Bill. The special ed, that is a moving target. This is where we are right now. We can opt to move the money there now, or we can hold off. We do have the special ed reserve if we want to take that route. Or we can just get it done and move the money now. That's up for discussion. And then these other items below. We kind of keep a tally as we go through the fiscal year with admin and at COPE. These are items that have come up, the first 4 items. The next 5 are items that were discussed during the budget process that we said, let's, look at potentially using end of year funds for those items. And then the last 3, again, I hear topics and I throw them on the sheet of paper for discussion. So obviously we can't do it all right now, but the thought is we can at least do a couple of them. And I'll let Dr. Cook take it from here.
Yes, as Stacy said, this is the time of the year that we start to look at these items. There's a much longer list that we've kind of cut down to being realistic. We have said for a couple of years now that the major focus would be Brown School, and then I think Olson would be next if we had a large sum of money. But given what we're looking at, which really represents less than 1% of our budget. We're looking at, I think the Brown School, this makes the most sense to prioritize, and of course, filling in any negative balances. Stacy's always conservative, but really spot on, kind of with her handle of the accounts. So we really appreciate that. And working there on your staff. That's we're just able to answer any questions that they have. Just a note, food service is running, pretty much close to even, maybe a little bit behind, but they have some large accounts they're trying to collect. And they will. So should be in a good place.
so just to make sure I understand this right. So you would be looking for line transfers from the finance committee tonight to approve line transfers for at a minimum the 30,000 for general ed legal. And the 377,400 for the ground school, correct?
Yeah, just your endorsement and then we will pass them through to the Board of Ed at the next.
Okay,
meeting.
so no,
We
we
won't
won't
be on the Board of Ed tonight.
Okay, so just our general approval, and then. Tell us a little bit more about your thoughts about the special ed. You said that's sort of a moving target. We could do now, we could do later.
Yeah, so as you all know, we have that special ed reserve fund. There is a balance in there. So I think it's, really a discussion. Do we want to ask to tap into that, or do we want to try to fund the funds within? We have the funds within, knowing that there are other things. So do we want to hold off and maybe have another conversation?
One of my concerns there is that. Depending on what that's full to, if it's over the 250,000 or whatever, then there's more cushion, but we always aimed to at least keep. A minimum of, I think, 250 or 280,000 in that reserve fund, because that could be 2 outplacements, that we're expected.
Yep, yeah,
So-
no, I totally agree. I just wanted to bring it up, really.
Yeah, that would be my preference as well. I believe is it 300?
350.
350 now at this
It's
point.
at 350.
But again,
The reserve.
But we have to
still
wait till
2
the-
outplacements, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and we wouldn't be able. We wouldn't look to be trending to replenish it.
Right.
So that would be my preferences as well as to leave that fund untouched. And we are hearing potentially a better excess cost grant reimbursement, but again, that's nothing in hand at this point. And if it comes and we have that, we would certainly return to the town or with the bill discount at that point.
Doesn't the ECS automatically go to the town reimbursement?
Not the excess costs or the
They both have the
loss
same
rate.
initials, which.
Yeah,
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 So
yeah.
Excess.
Yeah.
excess cost is the refund of student outplacements.
Yeah.
By a certain percentage, and the state does not fully fund that, and they talked about funding it at a higher percentage.
Yeah.
The educational cost sharing grant, ECS.
Mm.
Is about 350,000.
Yeah, I think close to 4, yeah.
Yeah, that goes right to the town, and the town years ago, as you know, too, does not budget for that because there had been many years where Madison was considered to be reduced. That would either go to 0 and then we'd have a whole budget if that to start the school year off, to start the school year off. So the town does not budget for that, which I think is a smart plan.
What did we budget for excess cost?
I don't have that with me right now, but I can definitely get that for you.
Yeah, it's probably a little short of 2 million. 1.7 is ringing a bell. And a big chart that Liz provides it this year.
So we budget the expenditures and then it's net. of
Right.
what-
Yeah,
Of what we anticipate.
I think
getting
it's
in.
2 million.
Yeah, I can definitely, I'll definitely get that. And right now we are showing net of what we anticipate getting in of that deficit.
So
So I wasn't at the last meeting, but what's going on with Brown, that if there's such a deficit in that account? Is there the main office?
yeah, it's not a deficit
Oh.
in the account. It's we have an opportunity to achieve some cost savings in redoing the office, which we were planning to do anyway, like the following summer or something.
Okay.
But if we accelerate it and do it sooner, while the crew is in there already doing some of the other work they're doing, we can achieve some economies of scale, save a little bit. So, but we need to vote to use town money from elsewhere in the budget.
So it's not
in
really
the funds.
a projected deficit, it's
Yeah.
more taking some of our available funds towards
True.
moving
Sorry,
anticipated
yeah.
projects, so I think
Yeah,
that's
I kind of moved it up to make it a
It's a
priority.
priority,
Yeah.
but Bill
Sorry.
was talking about like the work in our previous meeting. The work at Brown School for the summer and identifying needs there for enhanced office space, so that's. It's not that they're over budget, but they're in their main office. Thank you for mentioning that, Christine. Other comments? Christina, it's just you and me today representing
I
finance,
know.
so. So typically at the end of the year, if we were to at this point endorse moving a line item, or these two, the general ed and the Brown School, then any remainder of projected available funds would be later on discussed and reviewed for end of year projects. Is that right?
Yes, so, yeah, if we were able to find, say, another $100,000, we can come back and
Okay.
speak to that at that point.
So those other potential requests, we aren't taking action on at this point necessarily. That's just for us to keep in mind.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to lay it all out there, share that, share everything with you, and the timing may be of such where we may not be able to bring it to the finance before the Board of Ed, but all the line item transfers over 10,000 gets approved at the Board of Ed level anyway, so you'll all see that. But we did want to just bring your attention to the items now.
Got it.
I mean, ordinarily, I might be tempted to ask if we have that much. Projected left over at the end of the year. Are we off on our program budgeting? But in this case, because that's just above, they're just below the amount that represents our HR and salary kind of underspending. It really explains, it's been hard. We haven't been able to fill paralegal, that paraprofessional, para-educator spots, and, a couple early retirements and things like that, and it's not programming, it's all HR.
Is this more than typical, Stacy?
This year's a little bit
Okay,
higher, I mean, it kind of fluctuates with what's, going on in the
yeah,
in the world, but this is definitely a favorable variance.
yeah,
It's
excellent.
gonna help us out.
In the Fab Lab, do you know more information about what those items are? I know we recently had our tour of the Fab Lab, I'm just curious.
So the thought was to eventually expand that to the middle school.
Yep.
And at this point, the almost more the programming is the issue. Funding is obviously an issue, but the programming, like how would it fit in middle school students is, the middle school schedule is very different than high school in terms of when we can do that. So what we are looking at doing is infusing some of the Fab Lab work into their technology classes. So we're looking at doing that. Diana, who was one of the teachers that was at the high school when the board visited, will be in the middle school full time next year, so she'll be doing some of that work.
Great.
So that worked out well. Since Seth mentioned in a previous meeting, I think one of the areas that we kind of have our eye on is some storage areas that was used at Colson, so actually potentially be very good. Happy I said that when Bill was listening, so that's good.
Sorry.
Nothing. Okay.
Facilities problems, they will just keep going.
Yes.
Going. Okay, Nate. All right. Other questions or comments from the committee? Yeah, so do we want to wait on special ed? I know we don't want to touch the reserve fund now, though, so I'm just wondering what the best way to proceed is.
We can do it if you're all comfortable doing it. And we have another week or two to the Board of Ed meeting, so if we see things changing, maybe we could do it to the Board of Ed before finance actually meets again.
Or could we approve it? Provisionally up to, a 250,000 balance remaining in that. Designated fund. Does that make sense?
Sure, so 100,000, do you want to approve for now? Because there's
As a reserve.
250 in there, or there's 350 in there, so if you want to do it.
Yeah, the reserve.
Because those numbers are firm.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
His-
Yeah,
Yeah, historically, I'm not familiar with the reserve fund for special ed, but historically, is there always 350 in there? And also historically, is that where we have always gone to? And then replenished at one point, or how does that all, I'm trying to get the grasp of how this works.
yeah, so it's been at 350 for a couple of years, we put money in, I believe in 2019 and 2020 to get it up to that 350 level, and historically we have tried to find it within our budget before going and dipping it into that fund.
But our sort of target has been to maintain a 250,000 balance in there, correct?
Because that insulates us against like
Yeah.
potentially a couple.
Yeah. So it's healthy now. That we could, okay.
Now, saying that. But what we've done in the past and how the fund was created was out of year-end money. We put it inside and create that fund and, if we did below 250, that's gonna be the source of replenishing is, at year-end next year or the following year. So it's just good to be mindful that we shouldn't be planning to do this every year and get it and then dip into the 250. We can avoid it. I mean, that's what it's there for, but preferable only if you need it. Break glass in case of emergency rather than we'd like to do an extra project, you know what I mean?
Well, I think the plan would still be not to dip into it, the plan would
Yeah.
still be to. Pay for all the special ed through transfer, it would just be that we're not transferring all at this point, and I think that's a good move as well, because. As I said, there could be an additional excess cost grant
Right.
funding, or sometimes a student may not finish out where they were. And each day is billed separately, or bill comes in lower. One of the volatile parts of that account is we are now just getting in the increases for the placement schools for next year. So we kind of anticipate an increase, but the 3% increase become a 7-8% increase. We're seeing budgets in other towns or other places. So that's one of the things that I have to anticipate. It's really difficult because they don't set their budgets in costs until later.
So would it be appropriate to vote tonight? To approve like an up to 150,000. Transfer?
Okay.
Or just 150,000 transfer?
Just based on what I'm hearing, I feel as though the money should obviously come from the general. Budget as a transfer, and then for the amount that they need. Projected now and not go into the reserve at this point. I'm not sure that the number is solid enough for us to. Jump into. And break the glass, if you will. So that's just my opinion, based on what I'm hearing here. I feel like. The comfort level of keeping 350 in there is there. Based especially on increases and whatnot, so if we can do it by generally transferring, I think that's a better way.
I think, were you saying 100,000 to start with, and then
Or we could do the 41 if you wanted, and that would leave 100, that would then potentially. Take out, but remember that 250 was a few years ago as our goal, and
Yeah.
as Dr. Cook just said, prices are going up. Like,
Yeah.
Is our goal now 300 or 350
Right.
or not? So.
Yeah.
I like that, that feels. Like you said, and if we get money, who knows what. It's going to deplete everything right now, it's hard. Are you comfortable with that, Christine? I am. 41 now at this point. I think there's a lot of variables that come into play, and I think to jump the gun on it is just probably not a prudent idea.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable with the 41.
And are we also comfortable with the 30,000 for general ed legal and 377,400 for the Brown School improvements main office?
And those are not coming out of that special ed fund.
Right.
obviously.
No,
Those
they're
are coming
not.
out of general.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that, endorsing that, so it can come to the board in a couple weeks?
I'm fine with that.
I am too. I will do something,
Yes, yeah.
okay. Great. You need anything else from us, Stacy?
The only thing I did pull out the special ed budget for this current fiscal year, and the total for public, private and transportation was about 4.5 million gross. We netted that with 834,000 of a grant coming in.
Use that one more time, sorry.
So the gross expense.
Yeah.
For the high cost children is 4.5 million. We netted that with 834,000 of the grant, of the excess cost grant coming in. So the total budget was 3.7.
I just say before we close out the shop, on this meeting, I think it would be. Helpful for the finance committee to actually take a vote.
Sure.
You have 2/3 here, so you've got a quorum. Take a vote on those 3 items, and then it's coming to the board next week with the authority of the.
Yeah.
Of the finance committee.
So just our support for the transfers is the vote that you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to. How do I word this, Stacy?
Approved line item transfers.
To approve line item transfers. For $30,000 to general ed legal. $377,400 to Brown School Improvements Main Office and $41,000 towards the special education. Do I have a second? I'll second. All in favor? Motion passes, so we'll take that to the Board of Ed.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy.
And it's just one final question, the excess cost that you're netting against the transportation, is that the final number, the 834?
That was what was.
That was what was put.
And that wasn't only for transportation, it was for.
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy, for keeping us so informed. This is helpful to see. Any other questions for Stacy?
Related, Galen asked me to speak to the reductions for next year.
Yeah.
As you know, we have $75,000 reduction. The plan was to bring that forward now. And Galen was agreeing that after the budget passes, the 16th, to be certainly optimistic. Because if the budget did get altered, it obviously potentially different than $75,000 reduction. So it makes sense, I think, to wait until that's done and do that. So the second meeting in May. But our intention is still, and we are in good place, and Stacy will confirm this. We originally did the $50,000 for electricity and liability insurance. So that obviously was achieved, and then $25,000 would come out of retirement savings. And we had not expected at the time that the budget was put forward. Yes. Yes, so for a teacher retiring.
Was your question? Or-
I just I misunderstood something, so it's not worth me.
Okay. No, that's what it was on here.
Sorry.
Do we anticipate any other retirements?
We've had some people talk about it, but fortunately, they're looking like they're gonna stay with us, so that's good. Yeah, there's some really talented teachers that I think every this time this year, they start to think about it, but we're pleased that we've been able to convince them to stay.
So that'll be coming in our May meeting,
Second.
second meeting. We can look out for that. Okay. Great. Do we have any public who would like to speak in person or on Zoom? No one on Zoom in person? No members of the public who want to comment? And our items for you to close out? All right, we'll adjourn at 5:50.